on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Apex podcast presented by RockShock. I'm sitting here with Nina Machnowski from Brevard University, Brevard College. I guess that's a thing. I figured out that that's a thing when I went to Mars Hill University, and it was such a big deal that they went from a college to a university. I still don't understand the difference, nor is it that big of a deal for me. But anyways, what's going on with you, Nina?
Nothing much right now. I'm up in Keystone, Colorado. I'm doing some acclimating, getting ready for the Leadville Mountain Bike 100, but I also think that this will be great preparation for the upcoming Pikes Peak Apex.
Sweet, yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, we're gonna dive all into that because I kind of want to know, you know, Leadville is just a whole different beast on its own. But let's go ahead and dive into a little bit about you. So let's figure out where Nina becomes a cyclist and overall, just powerhouse of a woman in the racing scene, the mountain bike scene.
Yeah, so I started riding super young. I grew up in New Jersey, which the riding scene there isn't the greatest, but somehow I made it happen, and cycling became a really big passion for me. So I was looking at places to go to college where I could continue training and racing, and it happened that Brevard College had a cycling team, so I was able to continue my education and my cycling there.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So how do you even get started though in New Jersey? How do you find out about mountain biking in New Jersey? I don't really know of many mountains in New Jersey. I know a few mountain bikers, but again, like there's not a ton of pros just coming out of New Jersey. So like how do you get started into the cycling scene in New Jersey?
Yeah, so my parents, they were always into the outdoors. They always took me on hikes or bike rides. And my dad was starting to get into the local cross country mountain bike scene. And there is a local series that we have. And so I started in that, and I was like, I want to take this seriously. And I tried out my first longer distance marathon mountain bike race, and I just fell in love with it. So I knew from then on that I wanted to do those longer race formats.
And so the rest has pretty much been history. And so now
Mm-hmm.
you're racing for what sponsors? I know you said that you pretty much race for the college, but like what's you also have like your separate sponsors that you work with, like more of like a privateer kind of situation, right?
Yeah, so I would consider myself a privateer. I race for Pivot Cycles, Pearl Zumi, Cask Helmets,
Yeah.
Coup Eyewear, a bunch of different brands. Flow Formulas is a big sponsor of mine.
Cool. And so how does that like all work? Like when you were like, getting into, the cycling space and trying to figure out teams and stuff like that. Have you found it just to be easier just to kind of like pick up, you know, onesie and twosie sponsors here? Or are you still trying to search for that big team and try to jump over to a big team, or like what's that like look for you?
Right now, I'm pretty happy with where I'm at. I really like having the sponsors that I have. It really feels like a family. And I feel like also having my own sort of having the privateer life allows for a lot more freedom in the races I choose and in my training.
No, that's cool. And so with you being in Colorado, like let's just go ahead and turn here. What other racing have you done this season? Like do you race gravel as well? Are you just only on the mountain bike? Or what's kind of been your overarching season goal as this privateer and this program goes?
Yeah, so I have been doing a lot more gravel racing this season with Gravel Locos in Texas, Belgian Waffle Ride Asheville, and I also attempted Croatan Buck 50. That
Okay.
was really early this season. And I'm really trying to get to those longer distance, like 150-mile gravel races, although I think that I'm still at that 100-mile distance. That's more comfortable for me still.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure.
Um, but my biggest goal this season has been Leadville. Since I got in earlier this year, I've just been stoked about it, and all my focus has been to Leadville.
Yeah, and so what does the prep look like? Because like you're in the mountains of North Carolina, which Brevard, I guess it's pretty much Asheville, North Carolina,
Mm-hmm.
is like the best way to put it. And I would say you're probably at least 1,000 feet in elevation,
Um, yeah,
maybe.
we're in the town of Brevard. I think that we're at 3,000.
Okay.
And then the top of the Blue Ridge Parkway, it gets up there like to 5 or 6,000. But even that is not very high when you talk about racing. Leadville, that's like over 10,000. Like Pikes
Yeah.
Peak Apex is all over like 7,000.
Yeah. So
Um,
Pikes Peak Apex, you'll probably be racing the majority of, like, you'll start the day at about 6,500, and then you'll be racing anywhere from 7 to 8 to even 9,000
mhm.
feet. I mean, if they do Rampart again, that'll go up to 9,000 feet.
Yeah.
So how do you even prep for that? Like, back in Brevard, like obviously you're in Keystone, Colorado right now, but how are you prepping?
Mhm.
How did you prep for it before you headed out to Colorado?
So I might be a little biased here, but I think that the riding in Brevard, North Carolina is the best on the East Coast. I mean, we have tons of gravel roads, tons of mountain bike trails, some really gnarly mountain bike trails as well. Earlier this year, I did the Pisgah Stage Race,
Yeah.
which was 5 days of mountain biking in Pisgah National Forest. And I feel like, well, that was my first mountain bike stage race. And so going into it, I didn't really know what to expect. But after I raced that, I was sort of on this stage racing high, and I've been itching to do another stage race since then. So I feel like it's a format that really suits me, and that experience at the Pisgah stage race earlier this season was a really good idea of what goes down in stage racing and how my body reacts to it.
Yeah, and so what about the stage racing though that kind of drew you to it? And I mean, you know, we have 4 days of pretty stout racing on tap, but what about the stage racing do you feel like is a big key and a big bonus to you?
Um, I like that consistency is ultra important in it. You can't just do really well in the first stage and then be too cracked to even finish the rest of the stages. Just keeping in mind that you're playing a long game here, and not getting hurt, not breaking your bike, taking care of your bike after every stage. All those things are super crucial. Eating well after every day. I like that you have to kind of think about the days that are coming up and not just think about the race that day.
Yeah, and so for a race like, let's just dive into the Pisgah stage race. So for a race like Pisgah, like how did you even like prep, like, or not prep, but like how did you more or less like decide like, okay, on stage one I'm going to do X, on stage two I'm going to do Y? Like how do you go about that? Like, do you look at the profiles, or are you looking at the distances? Like, what's the big deal with them?
Yeah, well, I was already pretty familiar with all of the trails for every day since I had been living there for almost 2 years, going to college there. And so had already ridden most of the trails, but I did go back and pre-ride a lot of it, especially those enduro stages like Pilot and Bennett's Gap, which are notorious for being super gnarly. And I feel like that really gave me a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
I did look a lot at the elevation profiles and kept that in mind for pacing. I also look at where the aid stations were, and like how to fuel properly for the day. I also had to really take into account how much hike a bike sections there were in every stage, because when you have to do a hike a bike, that takes a much bigger toll on your body than if you could just ride it.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
so, for example, on stage four, I knew that the hike a bike was just before the enduro, which was at the end of the race. So I sort of left enough in the tank that I would be able to basically sprint up that hill, carry my bike, and finish off the stage strong.
No, that's exciting. And so, like, I guess my thing is for you, it's like, have you ever done Leadville before?
I have not. No, this will be my
So,
first year.
so do you have a time goal in mind? And if you do, like, I think this is really interesting, especially for the women. Like, I coach a few women, and the the time goals and the time gaps are, they can be a bit difficult. And so, like, I have one female who's like, obviously their goal is to go under 9, but that is a little bit more. stout for somebody, you know, at the
Mhm.
master's level, and then that is a female. And so what is your necessary time goal, I guess, going into Leadville?
Yeah, so right now I'm setting a goal of sub 10 hours.
Okay.
Obviously, it would be nice to go under 9,
Yeah.
but I try to be a little bit more realistic and basically prepare for the worst, prepare for a full day on the saddle, um, and bring extra gear, extra nutrition than I might
Yeah.
need.
And so are you like planning out your stops? Are you planning out, you know, what is going into planning to get you to 10 hours, right? Like cuz you know, we look
Mhm.
at you as a professional female athlete, and the big belt buckle lies at 9 hours, like
Mhm.
just under 9 hours. And so where are you getting to the conclusion of 10 hours?
So, based off of previous mountain bike races I've done a lot of the NUB races, and the 100-mile mountain bike race I did in the past was the Shenandoah 100. I know that course is much gnarlier, much more technical, a little bit more climbing. So, just based off of those previous statistics, um, I think that I can definitely average more than 10 miles per hour on the Leadville course,
Yeah.
considering that it's so much gravel. Um, but I'm also, I'm also being strategic with my bike setup, with where I get aero, where I draft.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have support from Flow Formulas out on the course, handing me bottles, so I won't have to carry a camelback per se,
Yeah.
which can add a lot of weight and also create a lot of fatigue on my back.
Yeah, and so when you're training for these big events, and this has been like the big thing, like the big conversation of like I ask all the pros, I'm like, if you could give one bit of advice to some athletes coming in, and the common denominator, what we're coming back to is food. Like eat, eat,
Hmm.
eat, eat, eat.
Oh yeah.
And like eat as much as you can. If you feel like you've eaten enough, just eat a little bit more. Has been like the common go to. So with you, like how are you laying out your nutrition strategy? Obviously with flow formulas and diving into that, but how do you plan out per hour? And then on top of that, what I've realized, and even like, well, let's start with that. Let's start with that, and then we'll go to my next question. But yeah, so how are you sitting down and going, okay, I need this amount of carbs, I need these specific
Mhm.
carbs. Like, is it going to be all liquid? Is it going to be some solids? Like, what's it going to look like?
Yeah, so for when you're doing a ride or race where you're getting into that 10-hour range, 8 to 10, 12-hour range, that's a long day.
For sure.
And I I've from personal experience just hammering down the gels,
Yeah.
and the liquid sugar is not going to be sustainable. Like you're going to
Yeah.
get sick of it. You're going to be craving some solid foods. So I think what I'm going to try to do is pace myself in a way that I'll be able to digest some, simple fruit and nut bars, maybe some fig cookies, just some solid foods so that I don't get sick of that just sugary sweet taste in my mouth.
Yeah. And so like are you laying it down carbohydrate per hour? Like how are you
Mhm.
like what's that look like? How many carbs are you taking in per hour?
So I think so if I do 3 scoops of flow formulas per bottle, that I usually do 3 scoops if I'm doing a higher intensity race. But for something like Leadville, I will drop it down to like 2 scoops per bottle. So I think that's like 60 grams of carbs per bottle, and I'll be drinking 1 bottle per hour.
Yeah.
That's the goal, but realistically, I know that I always drink less than that.
Yeah.
Especially if it's cold in the morning, I won't be wanting to reach for that water. Um, so I supplement with a gel an hour, and then every 2 to 3 hours, I'll be taking in some sort of solid food, so like a Larabar or a fig bar.
Wow. And so like if we look at that 10 hours,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I'm going to write it down just so we can do some math here. So we're at 600 grams of carbohydrate at least.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you add on to it, you're saying a gel per hour or two, right? So
Yeah.
that's, you know, another at least 250 grams of carbohydrate every 2-ish hours, just for
Yeah.
the ease of the math. We're taking in another 40 grams of carbohydrate. So 5 times 40 is another 200 grams of carbs. So around about, we're taking in, looks to be 1050 in carbohydrate. That's
Yeah.
insane. Like,
Yeah.
and
That
so,
is, I mean, I've had a lot of like issues with nutrition in the past, and it's taken a lot of testing and so many races where nutrition went wrong for me to finally learn what worked for me. I think that the altitude is definitely a huge confounding factor with nutrition because your appetite is lower at altitude, and I think that you do burn more calories.
yeah, heart rate's
So,
higher, burning more calories,
right.
burning less oxygen. Yeah.
So, like you said, like even if you feel like you don't need an extra gel that hour, you should probably take it.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. And so, like, how do you like? And you made a great point, because, like, at Leadville, I did the classic no-no last year of, um, I did the classic no-no of trying new new nutrition, and I'm not going to
Yeah.
name them because I think they're a great nutrition company, and um, I got super sick, and I literally just went straight liquid, and
Hmm.
I think I took in close to 2,000 grams of carbohydrate for the 8 hours and 40 minutes.
Wow.
Um, and yeah, I got really, really sick because it was just like straight sugar gut. And so,
Hmm.
how do you train the body, and like, what's some tips on to train the body to be able to absorb that kind of nutrition?
Yeah, so especially recently, I've been going on these 4 hour rides, 5 hour rides, these interval sessions. And instead of, instead of being like, oh, I had a big breakfast, I can probably make it um, to lunch, or, this will hold me through my intervals. I mimic exactly what I'm going to use on race day in my training.
Yeah.
So I'll put the same amount of scoops in my bottles, take a gel an hour, take that bar every 2 to 3 hours. And I feel like that's really the only way to get used to it and to know if that will work for you.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. And so, like, I think the big thing is here, guys, is like, if you're gonna test some things out, make sure you're doing it a couple weeks prior. Make sure you're doing
Mhm.
it on one of those good long training rides, getting ready for the event. So then that way, you know how your body's gonna respond. You know what's gonna back up, and then that way you don't get sick day of, and nothing crazy happens. And then so, yeah, with Leadville behind us, so are you just gonna stay in Colorado for that whole
So
time? Or are you gonna head home, go back to school? Like, what's this look like?
So ideally, I would stay in Colorado at elevation, but my fall semester is starting up, and I will be participating in my college team races
Okay.
because I'll probably be doing collegiate nationals in October. So I have to be at least at 4 out of 6 of those races. Um, so mid September, I'll be racing college races every weekend, and then I'll be taking that week off to fly out to Colorado Springs and race the Pikes Peak Apex.
Sweet. And so, what do you study at Brevard?
So I'm double majoring in exercise science and health science.
Oh wow. And so, like, what is your overall end goal with that?
I mean, right now, I really have my eyes set on becoming a nutritionist or a registered dietitian.
Yeah.
Although I am working with some companies running their social media, so I got some side gigs going on, and so far, I enjoy what I'm doing. So I think I'll just see what happens and go with the flow, and just see when new opportunities arise.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, trust me, the social media marketing stuff is dope. It's dope. That's what I
Hmm.
do. I love it, and it's a good time. I'm biased
Yeah,
though.
you meet so many awesome people.
Yeah, yeah. You meet so many awesome people, you have fun, and then, like, on top of all that, and I mean, you do as a nutritionist too, and like as a cycling coach
Hmm.
and all that other stuff. It's great, but like doing some of the social media stuff, creating content is a lot of fun. So yeah, but anyways, diving back into um, that, like, how do you find the balance to train like a professional athlete and then also double major while at school, and then on top of that, you're running your your team, you also have to be a component of your college team. And so you're playing two
Mhm.
schedules here. And so how do you find that balance?
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like it kind of just all falls into place, luckily. I mean,
Yeah.
I try to choose my classes strategically so that I either have time to train in the morning or the afternoon, or, I usually want to do one long ride a week, so I'll see where I can have no classes for one day.
Yeah.
Um, and Brevard College is pretty flexible with training and racing, especially if they know that you're on the cycling team, which has had great success in the past. They want you to continue succeeding and to be a good representation of the college and the team. So, for example, I'll say like, "Hey, I have to fly out to Colorado," and my teachers will usually, grant me some sort of like virtual like class, or they'll record it for me, and they'll be very flexible with that.
Wow, that's awesome. So it's pretty much like a whole family affair. It's like a team affair kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
they make sure that you're able to do these things for your team and make sure you're able to do these things for yourself, which is super cool. And so have you ever been to Colorado Springs?
I have not. No.
You've never been to Colorado Springs. You never read anything in Colorado Springs. So I can't ask you anything about, food and all that crazy stuff of what you would enjoy in Colorado Springs. So that being said, what I can ask you is do you have any crazy epic stories of like ones, I don't know, if from an epic ride or an epic adventure where you were just like, I might not make it out of this one? Like we all have those wild stories where it's like, oh man, I'm stuck here. And do you have any of those?
Well, I have a crazy animal story.
Okay.
Um, so this was in 2019. I was out in the panhandle of Texas with my dad. We were there for Marathon Mountain Bike Nationals.
Yeah.
And this was actually the day after the race. We were like, we have another day or two here. Like, we might as well go explore and ride our bikes. So we went to a trail system at Caprock Canyon,
Yeah.
and we were just riding along, just like cornering really fast, like going down these trails, like ripping. And we saw some like hoof prints in the dirt, and my dad was like, if we see some horses up ahead, like we'll give them right of the way. Like, we shouldn't, ride around these corners so fast. We don't want to like run into somebody.
Yeah.
And so we kept going and going, and then suddenly we just like grabbed on the brakes, stopped, and there was just this bison, like head lowered, like ready to charge.
Oh man.
And that was the last thing that I expected to be out there. I had never encountered such a big animal
Yeah.
out riding, and I could feel the tears coming because I thought it was gonna charge and it was
Yeah.
gonna like run
It was
into
game
us.
over. Yeah.
Yeah, so we started backing away slowly. We kind of like moved off the trail and like kind of stood behind some trees with like our bikes in front of us, because maybe if it like ran into us, it would hit our bikes.
Yeah.
Like,
Maybe
um,
you would be able to stop this several ton beast from coming
right,
at you.
maybe.
Yeah, just maybe.
Um,
Pivot cycles, guys. Pivot cycles. They stop the bison for you.
I
So,
will tell you, it did stop a dump truck last year,
what?
but
How did that
yeah.
happen? So there we
So
go.
here's another story. Yeah.
See, this is what happens. You tell one story and then you're like, "Oh yeah, the dump truck."
Yeah, you kind of get reminded of some other things.
Yeah.
So last year I was um, I was riding Brevard, North Carolina, which there are a ton of cyclists there. I actually grew up in New Jersey, so
Yeah.
relatively to New Jersey, the riding Brevard is like super safe on the road.
Yeah.
And I just came around a turn, was going down a road, and in the right lane, in the right shoulder, and a dump truck jerked the wheel to the left and just like hit me straight on.
Whoa.
So, my bike and we went flying like 15 feet onto the pavement. I I just had severe road rash. Luckily, I didn't break any bones, but if you think about the combined impact, I was going about 20, the dump truck was going about 30.
Whoa.
Um, my bike was just, cracked in multiple places. My frame took all of the hit,
Yeah.
and I came out walking alive.
So
So
instead of taking the classic helmet photo, you can like take the pivot photo and be like, yeah, this is
yeah,
50 miles an hour of impact.
yeah.
It
Well, my
saved your
helmet
life.
was pretty done as well, and so was my
Oh
kit and all.
man.
But
Well, I'm glad you
yeah,
came out safe on that one.
I
So
know.
last question before I let you roll. What's a few things that you're stoked about? Like coming to the Apex. Like you've never been to the Apex. Why are you coming to the Apex? And yeah,
Yeah.
what's a few things you're looking forward to?
So, I mean, I already had it on my calendar
Yeah.
because I saw Emily Warner's video on nutrition for the Apex,
Oh, okay.
and I saw she was going, and I follow her, and I did want to do another stage race this year, but I didn't know where it would fit into my calendar, and initially I was like, collegiate race season, September is going to be a no go for any other races, but when I was given this opportunity and I heard about how awesome of an event is and who's going, I got so stoked and I was like, I need to go to this.
Sweet. No, well, Nina, we're stoked to have you coming to the Apex, and we can't wait to see you. And hopefully, you have a great time at Leadville. And I have a good feeling that your 10-hour mark might be a little high, and we'll see you show up with a big belt buckle.
I
I'm
hope
feeling
so.
it. I'm throwing out the big belt buckle vibes, and I'm the worst when it comes to being a coach in that sense. Like like when it comes to Leadville, I'm very optimistic, but when it
Mm,
comes to Leadville, I'm like, yo, and realistic actually to be said. When it comes to Leadville, I want everybody to try to fight for that big belt buckle if they can.
yeah.
It's a cool feeling. And so, yeah, we wish you the best of luck on that. Other than that, guys, if you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you go check out Nina and all her social media handles down in the description below, Nina Machina. And yeah, other than that, if I don't see you next time, we'll see you in September at the Apex. Thanks, guys.